Hi, I'm Andrew Dubber. I'm the director of Music Tech Fest, and this is the MTF podcast. Jason Singh Jason Singh's a musician, which is to say that musician describes him better than most words do, but not so well that you'd have any particularly accurate sense of what he does just from that title. It's kind of tough to pin down what he does. It's unlikely that you'd hear two separate projects of his and guess that they came from the same mind. He makes these incredibly intricate live beatbox film scores that don't sound like anything you might imagine when you hear the word beatbox. He creates large-scale ambisonic sound installations. He's regularly commissioned to do sound design for things like gallery and museum exhibitions. He undertakes experimental and collaborative projects involving sound, ceramics, textiles, and other inanimate objects and cultural artifacts. He also vocally recreates birdsong and entire forestry environments, and so rather than appearing on music shows on TV, his work's featured on nature and agricultural programs like the BBC TV shows Springwatch and Countryfile. But he's also a composer and collaborator who works with some really well-established UK jazz musicians. He's made quite straight-ahead what you might call contemporary adult pop music with the band The Sapphires. He's toured extensively with Rajasthani musicians, run music programs for children with special educational needs, and has also created international workshops about the relationship between the voice, the body, and technology. And recently, he's been getting into plants. Not gardening, plants, as musical collaborators. Now, I've known Jason for easily a decade or more, and we catch up from time to time if we happen to be in the same town, but that hasn't happened for a while. So it was really great to sit down and have a chat with someone who I admire as an artist, but also count as a really good friend. And you'll see why. He's someone who embraces and embodies the whole ethos of Music Tech Fest, one of the nicest people you could possibly hope to meet. This is Jason Singh. Enjoy. Jason Singh, it's been a long time. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
You're looking really well.
Thank you, brother. So are you, man. You look well younger and you look well smoother.
It's the beard and the shaved head. I think it's a good look. Yeah. And where are you?
I'm in Manchester, where I have been for past 27 years now.
And things all right in lockdown and you're coping?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because my kids are in Devon. So I'm doing this thing where I have the kids for a week and then they're down there for 2 weeks. So my time's now actually there's a routine to certain things. So I've got a schedule of stuff and then I'm doing these Facebook Live DJ shows things every morning. So that's keeping my head focused between 9 and 10. And it's wicked actually because I'm kind of getting back into music in a very different and unexpected way. So yeah, man, things are cool.
Well, why don't you tell me, what is the music that you're working on at the moment?
To be honest, I'm not creating anything at the moment. When the kind of whole lockdown thing started, it was almost as though kind of overnight, all my kind of creative output just ceased. And I haven't felt it. I've just kind of gone, okay, I'm not in a place to make, I'm going to my stuff, my gear, laptop, blah, blah, blah. And I'm in that thing. I feel like I'm in some sort of processing space of trying to understand what's going on. And I'm allowing it. I think for me, there's been probably for the past 11 years, it's just been relentless, of just different projects after projects after projects. I've not had any processing or evaluation time. And I think what's happening now is that I kind of got that, so just loosely thinking about projects and things that have happened. So that's happening. But the thing that's really keeping me in a creative space is the DJing. Feels like things have come back full circle, that I've gone back to 2 decks and a mixer and checking records out and playing tunes and just doing that for people really. So that's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing.
Do you still call yourself a beatboxer? Is that sort of the banner you go under, or have you moved on a long way since then?
I don't know. I mean, like, the thing is for me is that all the kind of tags and the things that I've ever come up, it's not stuff that I've created. You know what I mean? I'm a beatboxer to some people, I'm a voice artist to others, I'm a vocal sound designer to other people. I don't know. I'm just, as far as personally as I'm concerned, I'm a creator, because as well as beatboxing, I produce and I write and I create all sorts of other stuff as well. So those things, I mean, it's funny, people have been saying to me, oh, go on, beatbox on your show, do your thing. But I'm kind of like, I'm not really in that space. So right now I'm sort of I'm in a funny place, really, because I don't know really what I am. I've just kind of gone back to the beginning of stuff. Before there was, you're a this and I'm a that, and hey, this is what I do. I'm kind of now like, I beatbox, I use my voice, I use technology, I work with plant biodata now, and I do stuff with that stuff, and but I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of it actually means anymore. I'm just like, all those tags have been taken off, and I'm back to just, here I am. And what does that mean? I'm still creative. I still have some kind of output, but it's not through the tags and the things that are the labels that people have known me by.
How deliberate is it? I mean, let's take it right back to the beginning. What did you want to do when you started? What were you working towards?
In terms of creativity, the art. I mean, I have been creating music since I was 2, and that started off with rhythms. It started off with drums, and I never had the inclination or desire to be an artist. I never wanted to be a musician. Never wanted to be like, oh, we're going to go, make records or whatever. No interest in that. My only burning desire, and to the point of absolute obsessiveness, was to make beats and make rhythms, and as a child, before you could communicate that, my mum said to me, like, she bought me a drum when I was 2 years old, and she goes, you just started playing rhythms, and she goes, and I knew then, like, this, you've got music in you. And I come from music people, so it's in our family. And then growing up, I've just like obsessed over beats. It's completely obsessed over beats, and just for the thing of hearing rhythms, hearing grooves and stuff. And when it became a thing, I'd say is when I came to Manchester in '93. I was 19, and I started DJing. I grew up with sound systems, but that was part of our upbringing. So, all our friends had sound systems, you help out, and, being exposed to all of that music. And that was just part and parcel of it. There was no kind of desire to be something. And then came to Manchester when I was 19. And then that's when, it was like, I'd go to university. And that didn't work out because I was still DJing. Or I did a job, something else. I was a van driver for a year or so. I was still making music. And then just slowly, it was kind of like more than opportunities started coming. And I was, teaching DJing skills, and I was doing music production. And then I was but then also beatboxing, and I had a band, and I was running club nights, and like, it was just stuff. It was just all, there's never been a plan. Do you know what I mean? It's never been like, I am going to do this, or this is my 5-year, I've never done that. And it's weird because in terms of the time we're in now, I've had these kind of reconfigurations that have happened after certain periods of time. A community of people know me as an artist that does this. Somebody else has known me for that. Then I did another project, which then changed my course of stuff. So like the whole thing has just always been some kind of like strange journey of like this and that. And I run with the passion of whatever I'm feeling at the time. So, it was never a plan.
Was there ever a time you thought you were going to be something else?
Yeah, it's funny, when I was talking to my kids, they were saying, "Oh, Daddy, what did you want to be when you grew up?" And I was like, "Well, actually, when I was at school, funnily enough, I had something about wanting to be a fireman." And I remember the careers person said, "You're not going to make a fireman. You wear glasses, so you're not going to be able, you can't see properly." So, and also, there was all sorts of strange things that career teachers used to tell you. Oh, I think you should do woodwork. Do you know what I mean? You should go and work in your local shop. But yeah, so to be honest, the sort of fireman thing. But I spent a bit of time in TV. I was a young actor at a theatre school in London. And there was kind of talk of a sort of a promising acting career, and it was cool. I loved drama school, and go to the Anna Shear Drama School in London, and there was parts and things that were coming up, and it was especially at a time where there wasn't that much diversity in TV. So things like Grange Hill, EastEnders, that kind of vibe. There was sort of all these potential inroads, but then that didn't work out. And then when I came to Manchester, I worked in Granada Television for a bit, worked in VT Libraries. So there was a kind of, is it TV? Am I doing this stuff? But all through everything, through every single thing that I can remember, there's always been music. I've always been making stuff.
Oh. And so what do your kids want to be?
Well, my son, he says, Dad, I want to be a graffiti artist. I want to be a racing car driver. And, that's his ambition. My daughter's like, oh, I want to be a dancer. I want to be an artist. I want to create things. I want to make things. But to be honest with you, it's, all of that stuff is, what is it? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I was expecting you to say accountant or something like that. It always flips a generation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for me as well, is that I've never, both me and their mum, we've never kind of pushed the kids into any direction, to kind of go, do this or be that. I'm a this, so therefore you must be that. Or, I've got records and stuff, so therefore you. Never ever done that with my kids. Is that, that it's very much about what they feel. And if they feel, this is what I say to my children, is that if today you feel like you want to be a scribbler on a piece of paper, be that. If tomorrow you find that you want to paint the wall, do that. If the day after you want to feel like you want to work in a shop, do that. But do what you feel is true to you. Do you know what I mean? Never, and I would never do that. And that part of that is of my own upbringing, of being told, don't do music. There's no money in it. There's no thing. There's no career. And, I never did anything for a bloody career.
Yeah, but it must have been hard for you. The path that you've chosen is not, the greatest get-rich-quick scheme in the world. Have there been times that you've found it really tough to keep just doing that?
Yeah, man. I've been homeless. I've starved. I've not been able to pay my mortgage. Me and my partner split up, and a lot of that was due to, the lifestyle and the being on tour and, gigging and not being around. Life has thrown many things at me, but I truly believe this as well, is that music is not a path that I chose. Do you know what I mean? It chose me because there was a family business, there was all sorts of other opportunities of work and stuff. Music is the only thing that I feel like I've truly known and I truly am, so all of it comes with, I still miss birthdays, I still miss anniversaries, I still miss family gatherings. There's still a whole heap of headaches that come with being a musician and being an artist and creative. But I know what I am here to do. I'm here to do what I do in terms of music. And that whole, and also I'm never going to be rich from music. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, it's not a thing of, this is my thing and I'm going to build. I'm not into that. The last 15, 20, 25 years have themselves kind of said, oh, well, you're doing this for now. And now there's this, and then there's that. And there's lots of different configurations of this thing.
Does it help that people appreciate that you do it?
Does it help that people appreciate it? To be honest, not everybody appreciates it. There's, I don't know if this is still the right word, but there's still hate out there, and in terms of, say, for instance, with sort of the beatboxing thing, I think sometimes there's an expectation of what people expect me to be because I make rhythms with my voice or I do particular things with my voice. And I've always been someone who's gone against the grain of the mainstream. If 10 people are doing that, I will purposely not do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I will go the other direction, and it's a lonely road. That's the other thing. For many years with the stuff that I was doing in terms of turntables and voice, people didn't identify it with, say, the culture that I grew up in.
Right.
That's not Asian, or that's not South Asian, or that's not Indian, until I started working with particular artists.
Right.
And then people started recognizing my work. So,
but also a lot of what, because you think of beatboxing and DJing, you immediately think of hip hop, and a lot of the music that you make is not hip hop.
No, exactly. I mean, and for me, and also in terms of hip hop, as far as what I feel is that hip hop as a culture is what I was born into. And that was never about a genre of music. It was never isolated to a tempo or any sort of vocal thing. Hip hop sound systems that I grew up around were playing a whole heap of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And some of that was beats, but there was a whole musical heritage that was happening there, as well as fashion, as well as lyrics, as well as, DJing, as well as building sound systems. Like, there's a whole heap of thing there. So in terms of the music I make, if you listen to so many of the samples that are used in tunes now, they come from all sorts of genres. And so I still feel like I'm connected to the hip hop thing, but I don't isolate myself to around a tempo.
Right.
And now it is now just about frequency. It's whatever the frequency is, and whatever those collections of frequencies are. If it moves me, that's what I'm involved in. So.
See, if I was trying to file you away in a record store and struggling to, this one would probably have to go in the jazz section. This one would probably have to go in the ambient music section or experimental music section. What sort of guides you? Where do you start with? Here's the music that I'm going to make.
But this is it. There is never. Whatever I start from, in terms of a musical template in a DAW or whatever, it starts blank. I never really know what I'm going to make. If there's something that if there's like a groove, or if there's some kind of melody or something, I go, oh right, okay, then I'll put that, I'll put that down. But if I start anything, it's always usually from a tempo, from a blank slate. But the thing about being categorized, it's one of the reasons why I've always had issues with maybe getting a manager or getting somebody to represent what I do, because a lot of the comments that I've had over the years is that you do so many different things. You're doing stuff with textiles, then you're doing stuff with beats, then you're doing stuff with
Spring watch.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing is for me is that, but that's what it is. It's all creativity.
Right.
I've been trying to I've had things trying to funnel me into touring or writing particular kinds of albums of particular genres, but that's just not what I am. One day I will be working, I'm doing stuff with an orchestra, and next day I'm doing stuff with a poet or whatever. It doesn't matter now. And it also excites me that I can't be categorized in terms of, this, because people do say that, oh, I saw your credit on this thing with that singer from Mali. But then you were just doing that thing over there with, that free jazz thing. And I was like, but that's great,
Yeah. I mean, some of the people that you've collaborated with, and I want to ask you about that. Actually, let's start here. Are you a solo artist, or are you a collaborator by nature?
I think by nature I'm a collaborator, but in terms of what collaboration means, I like doing things in relationship or in response to something else. So for me, that's the collaboration. So, like now, doing stuff with plants, I might be me, but I'm in collaboration with another living thing. And that to me is like, I could not have made or created that without the connection with that thing over there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Similarly, if I'm with a human and I'm doing something, to me, that's also collaboration. So sometimes I might just work on my own, which might be recognized as being a solo, but it's never really on my own. I'm always in response or in collaboration with something, whether it's a loop pedal, whether it's a plant, whether it's a person. It's never truly like it's me.
Right. You're in dialogue with the world, is what you're saying.
That's a great way of putting it, Dubba. I'm in dialogue with the world.
Interesting. I had this conversation 10 years ago with Nitin Sawhney, and I had it again with him very recently when we spoke. And he has this idea of catharsis for music. And music is just about getting whatever's inside you out. Mm-hmm. And you seem to be, music is responding to the stuff that happens around you. How do you kind of work those two ideas?
At the beginning, when I think I became conscious of the fact that my world, my music world, is 24/7. The melodies, the rhythms, the textures, it's all happening all the time. But to communicate that as a way of creating when, I was around people who'd been to music school, or people who are DJs, or people who, I've learned Cubase, VST, blah, blah, blah. When you're around these, when I was around those people, for me to say, well, actually, I hear music when I press the buzzer on the traffic pedestrian crossing, or, if I'm opening my car door, there's beats there. To say that was quite, I kind of didn't, I felt very vulnerable saying stuff like that, because sometimes I get laughed at, and sometimes I was like, oh, you're weird or whatever. When I started doing the stuff with birdsong, and people started seeing it as a thing around a time when, people celebrating the dawn chorus and, connecting with wildlife in that way, then that gave me almost like a confidence that, well, if you think this is just about birdsong, here's some other stuff that is, that incorporates into this. So like, to me, there's like a never ending source of inspiration, which is non-verbal, it's not, I mean, like now there's a shutter opening across the road there and you bleeps as it goes on. There's like a whole musical thing that's happening there, but I love, now I've learned to go, because in a way, it's a kind of never ending pot of inspiration and source of creativity when you can hear the music in everything, and I don't know. Now I feel very lucky that I've kind of got that, because sometimes I'll be around. I'm not doing stuff, man. I'm not really boosted about anything, or I'm not really enjoying anything. And it's kind of like, okay, wow.
Yeah. Well, so you're responding to the world around you. You've gravitated in towards plants. What are you doing with plants, and how does it work, and why do you do it?
Okay, on one level, it's nothing new. There's people have been working with data and plant biodata for many years. About maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I came across an artist called I'm gonna have to get this name right, Micely, I think, or Mickley, and she's based in LA. And basically, I saw this video of this artist. Who was generating music from electrical signals from plants. And I'd read a book many years ago called The World is Sound. And in it talks about how all things vibrate and there's a frequency from all things. And so many different concepts and things, both musically, spiritually, and technically. And it sort of tapped into that, listening to this artist making these things. And I was blown away by it, but I didn't understand the technology. A lot of it was custom built, modular systems. And so I had no idea what was going on. And then over the years, still just kind of having that interest, I was commissioned by Chester Zoo with a collective of artists, which we call ourselves the Orchids Collective. And one of the things that Chester Zoo were interested in was this concept of plant blindness, where people come to see the animals in the zoo, but they neglect the environment and the kind of stuff around plants that the animals really rely on. So we were looking at this whole concept of plant blindness, and they said, like, is there something? And as soon as they said plant blindness, I was like, oh, okay, there is this thing that I'd like to explore. And it's about taking the plants and getting people to become aware of plants through sound, through the signals that run through them, through the energies that run through them. Everyone was just like, what the hell are you doing? What are you talking about? And then I found this company in Italy who produced technology that basically convert the electrical signals from the plants into MIDI. And that was a kind of the initial thing. And then as soon as I got it, it just made sense to me. It made sense to me that I'm attaching these sensors to listen to take, these electrical signals that are, and the thing was, on one hand, the botany team, like the horticulturalists at Chester Zoo, they were going, this is mumbo jumbo, man. Plants don't have emotions and all that. I was like, I'm not exploring that. But I was saying, but can you please confirm, is electricity being generated by the plants? And they said yes, like that's what is happening. So I thought, that's all I need to know. And then when I started attaching these devices, the stuff that started coming out, to me, that was a shift, because for so many years I've collaborated with so many different artists, so many different musicians, creatives, but to collaborate now with a plant, with a living organism that is non-human in that way, to me, that was like, this is exciting. Do you know what I mean? And so I was just attaching the sensors. All this music's coming out, through Ableton and my modular synths and stuff. And I'm like, this is amazing. So that's how that kind of stuff started. And then what's kind of happened is that I've then brought together the thing around my voice, and then responding to the plants and creating works and installations that explore plants and the human body, basically. And it's been amazing. And just before lockdown, I got a commission from Kew Gardens, and it was to be the biggest thing actually, to sonify the Temperate House. Yeah. And I cannot tell you, like, just to be asked to do that was incredible. And previous to that, I did an installation at Wollerton Hall in Nottingham, which has got this beautiful cast iron glass house with camellia in there, and that's what kind of really kickstarted that whole thing. But to create compositions from plants.
See, I would go into something like that wondering, what if the plants aren't actually any good at music? What if the sounds that they make actually generate terrible sounds? But I guess you've got some control over what the ultimate output is, because you're the musician in the equation.
Exactly. Then the thing is, what I'm exploring is plant as composer. I don't want to control. I don't really want to control what the plant is generating. So, for example, when I was working with the camellia at Wollerton, the original commission was something else. When I started listening to the recordings that I made, it was emotionally impacting me in a negative way. So I was like, why is it that I come to the studio, I listen to these recordings and I feel in a particular kind of way? Then I started researching the plants, and then I found out that the plants themselves were in an unfit state. They're basically being kept alive because they're not supposed to be in glass houses, and they're being eaten by aphids. And it was like all this stuff. And then when I was listening back to these compositions, I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to go into any scenario saying that, oh my God, this is an emotional response by the plants doing this. But I gave the compositions to different people. So just listen to this and tell me how it makes you feel. And they all said the same thing. I'm sorry, man, but this is horrible. It makes me feel sad. I feel down, And then when we came to actually installing the installation, people's comments, who I've never met, there was no real deep, elaborate explanation about what the work is. It was just the kind of thing of the music that you are hearing is being generated by the plants. So many people had just question after question after question about how it was making them feel, the space, people's own interactions about space, nature, landscape, environment. And to me, that's kind of what it was. So I didn't control it. I was just letting the plants to do. When I came to then work at Kew Gardens, then it was kind of like, okay, well, there's this plant that is now extinct in the wild in New Zealand, right? So how do I communicate this, to a public that may not necessarily listen to sound and relate those to plants? So lots of different questions there. So it's a mixture. It's a mixture of kind of like, this is a free exploration, and also, well, actually, I want to help people or guide it in some way. But I love the fact that it's the plant that is the composer. It is the plant that is generating that stuff. And in a way, I'm just a conduit, the sort of facilitator between those processes of people hearing it and the plant creating it.
Right. But presumably your preference is to work with plants who aren't under distress all the time. No,
I'm actually open to work with all plants, because in a similar way that if I'm doing workshops with people who are suffering from PTSD, or I'm doing stuff, in a jump up scenario in a youth center down the road, to me, it's all about, again, exploring the vast range of emotion and the vast range of things that are going on within a human life. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm interested in that.
I'll move this out of the plant context for a bit, because that's a really interesting angle, because not just the sound of distress or the output of distress, how can the music help to sort of address these sorts of things, do you think?
My goodness. First of all, man, I had no idea when I started any of this, the feedback or the comments that I would get because through these works. When we released the album, Sounds of the Grassland Village. It's been a while now. When we did that with Chester Zoo, things on Spotify now. There were so many different people like emailing in saying, I've listened to these pieces of music. I use them for yoga. I use them for meditation. I use them for sleep. My pets are listening to this stuff and it's sending them crazy.
Wow.
Right. But not just one thing, like several people in lots of different scenarios would be writing similar things about how it's making their pets feel, And so and it wasn't made with any intention other than just want to sonify the plants and see what happens. So that album in particular has had a, really vast kind of impact in terms of what people use it for.
Well, let's talk just really quickly, because you mentioned you're working with people with PTSD, for instance, and I guess if you're not going to say, well, these plants have emotions, certainly these people do.
Yes.
And the music that you make with them, does that change that emotional state? Does that help?
Yeah, sometimes it has. So when I've been doing stuff with orchids, for instance, we've had the setup set up. It's generating the sounds, and first people are coming and have been resilient. That's not doing that. That's not doing that. Then they'll sit with the music. Then they'll ask questions. Then they'll learn things. And then what will happen is that it starts off like they're asking about the plants, but then by the time we've kind of chatted and discussed and listened, people are asking about themselves and the plants. And what you're finding is like there's this kind of almost like a holistic cycle of, curiosity about something that's external, but then the questions that come out are like, it makes me feel like this. I didn't know it would make me feel like this. Oh, I've got an orchid, and it's been da-da-da-da. Oh, is that why such and such and such and such? So there's all this stuff that then relates back to people's own well-being.
Have you got any dream collaborators? Is a giant redwood or
Well, I would absolutely love to go to redwood forest and record, the trees there. The project at Kew was the dream,
right?
To be given open access to the Temperate House at Kew Gardens to generate, these compositions and a live installation, based on that. That was kind of like, this was the dream come true. And weirdly enough, I actually wrote it down as an intention of like, I hope one day I get to work with Kew. And then like the year later, it's like, so there's that. But to be honest with you, I think just exactly what I sort of said at the beginning of this interview is that I'm just not in a place. I'm in a weird place right now, because I've set up my binaural microphone set up, and I'm going into the woods and just doing live broadcasts of the space just so that people can experience, who may be in their own homes or whatever, experience that environment. I don't feel inclined to kind of go, oh, right, now I'm going to set up the sensors and now you can hear the oak tree. I'm in a place of reflection and questioning and reevaluating, I think, at the minute, because also, like I said, so much of my work is built upon the passion of what's happening at that moment. So if it's like, wow, right now I'm totally feeling, making music from tapping glasses, then that's what I roll with until something else happens. But right now it's kind of gone to like, well, I don't know where I am right now.
Right. Music is kind of inherently a cultural thing. And you strike me as somebody who's very much of more than one culture, that you sort of span a whole lot of different backgrounds and influences and tastes and so on. Is what you do rooted in culture in any way that you can sort of think of?
I think it's rooted in people. Like it's rooted in, if I meet a person and that person brings their whole life, which includes their culture, that's what I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. So all those exchanges, musical, food, textile, whatever, language, I'm interested in that because fundamentally, the question for me is, what the hell is this all about? What is this thing that we are in for a short space of time and then we're not? And to connect with people of different cultures, different geographical spaces, different ages, that's what I'm interested in. That. So the music comes as part of that. So, now looking like playing stuff out of my music collection, for instance, people say, oh my God, it's like so vast and varied. But to me, that's people. That's tapping into all those different lives and cultures and experiences that I've had and I'm lucky to have. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And whereas maybe say in the beginning, it was like, oh, well, actually between 1999 and 2003, most of my record collection is just drum and bass. You know what I mean? It's just that. Yeah. But that says a lot about where I was at that time and the people that I was around. So it is connected to culture, but I think it's connected to human beings. It's connected to that thing of what's your experience? Like, for instance, when you and I worked together in Australia, that the experience of working with people of a completely different culture that I had no connection to, but actually going, well, I've come from Manchester and you're from Melbourne, and there's things that you're experiencing that I experience. And there was something quite of a relief just to kind of get that. And I think that's that's what I really love, Andrew. I love that thing of connecting with people in different places and going, are you really that different from me? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you do this? Have you had that? Do you experience this? And more often than not, it was that
right
connection with people.
We kind of intersected again when you came to Music Tech Fest. The first time I came to Music Tech Fest, and that was a little while ago. But just tell me about how you got there and what your experience was.
You know, I should be interviewing you, mate, for that. How incredible that journey is, man. Michaela got in touch with me about coming to this place, Ravensbourne University, Greenwich, to do some stuff. I don't know how it all happened. Anyway, what blew me away about that was, to be honest, it wasn't, this is a Music Tech Fest. Come check out all this gear. It wasn't about that. What blew me away was these people in this room questioning, talking, discussing, sharing. The power of being in that space in those early days, right? Where, no, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't like, it was minds, like just in a space, like, and we all had a similar passion to communicate things through technology. And I cannot tell you how lucky and thankful and grateful for those experiences, because they went on to inform so much of what I do now in terms of asking the questions about the tech that I use, the things that I'm inspired by. And so Music Tech Fest was kind of like this collective, this posse of people who were from so many different backgrounds and different vibes. And the things that sometimes you were sort of embarrassed or scared about to chat to your crate diggers community, you could go, so look, man, like when you play this tune and you get this like fuzzy thing happening in your head, right? And you eat something and you hear a tone just over here.
Yeah.
Like, do you get that? Yeah, man, that's the thing. It's called synesthesia, man. That could not have happened in any other environment for me.
Right.
So MTF, like, to see where it started and how that thing has grown into this incredible thing of spaces and places and people and policy and festivals, and that's next level, man.
Well, I mean, I basically never went home after that. That was once I arrived and stayed. So yeah, it's so I know exactly what you're talking about. That kind of weird tribe of people who just get it.
And it's the weird tribe, man. It's the weird tribe. And what's incredible about the weird tribe is the passion for questioning. The passion of, this isn't the end. Hey man, this thing, this is not the final thing.
Yeah.
This is just work in progress of where we are now. And to me, man, that is the most incredible space to be in, because, Andrew, I have to say, still around the globe, there are promoters, organizations, funding bodies who are not open to be risky, they don't want to take the risk. And the amazing thing about Music Tech Fest is the constant thing of risk, the constant questioning and the constant pushing of, you don't know who's going to be in the room. You don't know what's going to happen. You might, I would go with one oh yeah, man. Hey, look, I've got a live looping thing. Oh, look what I do, right? Coming away going, okay, man, no, now there's a thing called paper controllers. So like the stuff that I was using, no, now it's going to cardboard.
Right. Yeah.
And you can only have that with people and places and spaces that are open enough to touch that void.
Right. One of the moments that stands out as a kind of an all-time high for me of all of Music Tech Fest was London 2014, and you're on stage with Yaz Ahmed and Leaf Cutter John and Tim Exile.
That's right, yeah. Yes.
And it was this. It was a 30-minute improvised performance that nobody, certainly not the people on the stage, had expected, and it just kind of happened. Is that something that happens to you normally, or is that something that you know?
No, man. There's first of all, that was at St. Luke's.
Yep.
Just Old Street. Yeah. There's the thing about that gig in particular was I was absolutely petrified because Tim Exile was in the room.
Right.
And not only was it, I've heard Tim's music and I'm like, yeah, man, like Tim Exile. But then it's like, okay, hey, man, use like jam, create something. Now to be in that scenario, because to me, although I use technology, I'm not a technologist. I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer. I don't take things apart to the level that some of my peers are just in a completely different realm.
Mm-hmm.
For me, technology, I feel like I'm at a certain place with it. Now that when we were asked to do that gig, to be working with Yaz, I wanted to work with for so many years, and knowing of her music and the stuff that she created in terms of a trumpet player, it was like amazing. Like this is fascinating and incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have Tim in the mix there, no one knew what was going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was very much of like, I reckon it's like something that there was something recently about the Miles Davis documentary that came on when he was talking with Herbie Hancock and the team, that younger team of musicians that he brought together. It was, here's the stage, just make it. And some I think somebody said on that thing that Miles was paying us to make mistakes in the gig.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in a way, and I'm not saying it was exactly like that, but what was really beautiful was a once in a lifetime opportunity to be working with two musicians that I love and respect and creating.
Mm.
That was gold. And nobody knew what was going to happen. There was, here's a little sketch of something and a something. And Tim, obviously, with his scenario, which is just all completely live and improvised. It was a very special moment.
It is kind of a tightrope, and it is kind of it could all go horribly wrong at any moment. And I mean, I've been doing Music Tech Fest for 6 years. It almost never goes wrong. I mean, you put smart people together who are creative and interesting, and they have this feeling that they could fail at any moment. But I've kind of learned that that's not actually what tends to happen. Do you kind of get to the point with your own kind of creativity where you think, actually, I have the confidence that, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's going to be cool in some way?
The thing for me is, I thrive with the fear of not knowing. One thing I can't do, I can't be involved in projects that I know what's going to happen.
Okay.
After, say, twice or three times being involved, because I know what's going to happen then. And then what I feel is personally is there's a level of complacency that sets in of like, well, I know then I'll be able to do this as a safe thing,
mm-hmm.
or be able to do that. What I thrive on is the moment or being in those kind of scenarios and projects and environments where I don't know what's going to happen. But the thing that I trust is not on the output; it's on the people that are involved in it. So knowing of Tim's work, for instance, I know he's an improviser. I know he's a person that makes from nothing. Similarly with Yaz, that's the thing that excites me, is kind of going, well, okay, as long as I can trust the people in the space, on the stage or whatever comes out will come out.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, I like the thing of like, this could all go somewhere completely sideways,
right?
Or it could just all fall flat on its face. But to me, that's where the interesting stuff happens. And
I guess technology is the thing that you can rely on to sort of hold it all up. Is that your kind of relationship?
Not really.
No.
No, I wouldn't say I can rely on it. There's certain things. For instance, even to this day, I never use my laptop as a creation instrument on stage. I'm just not of that generation, I don't think.
Right.
Hardware. This thing's got a knob on it and sliders and faders, and like that's what I think it comes from the DJ mixer kind of thing. You press, use a crossfader, it does this, and that.
Yep.
to me, I like those. I love that way of working, which is why I use those samplers and I use those effects machines and particular kinds of pedals that allow me to think. And I trust in them. But there's a whole heap of technology that I don't trust. I don't trust my iPad. I don't trust my laptop. And it's just me. What I do love is that there's certain plugins or there's certain effects and things that I use, and I love having the access to them, in a live scenario or in a production scenario. But I mean, like now, of all the gear that I have, of everything, of all the hardware and the software and the plugins and the I've come back to 2 decks and a mixer. You know what I mean? No effects, no nothing, just 2 turntables that I've had for nearly 30 years and a mixer. And now I'm going back to articulating something through that. Do you know what I mean? But if that fails, then maybe it'll be my voice. But then even the technology of my body, the architecture of what I am has failed me. I went to do a gig in Singapore, and on the way, and it was completely a voice project. On the way, I got a throat infection.
Wow.
So by the time I landed in Singapore, I couldn't do the gig. So it's a weird one because all the technologies could let you down.
Sure. Jason, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers. Really appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome, man. Thank you.
That's Jason Singh. I'm Andrew Dubber, and that's the MTF podcast. Now you can check out Jason's daily live streaming video vinyl-only DJ set, 9 to 10 a.m. UK time every single day. 2 turntables and a microphone, completely live. It's called The Daily Dose, and it's on Mixcloud. A link in the post that accompanies this episode. You can also find Jason on Twitter at JasonSingThing, and you can find me there as well. I'm at Dubber. You'll also find Music Tech Fest at Music Tech Fest on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever else you might happen to socially mediate. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. It just means that it turns up each week automatically for free, and you can share, like, rate, review, and tell your friends. In the meantime, have a great week, stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.